Somewhere right now, someone is pushing a grocery cart past shelves that look completely normal. No empty racks, no signs, no headlines. And that cart is filling up with items most shoppers walk past every single week. Not because those items are rare, but because most people have not figured out yet that the version that actually matters is already getting harder to find. 12 foods. One of them has a shelf life that makes everything else on this list look temporary. And the last one might be the most boring item on the entire countdown. Wealth does not change what ends up in a pantry as much as it changes which version, which format, how many, and how far ahead. None of these items require a bunker. None of them require a dramatic lifestyle shift. What they require is recognizing that a shelf can look full while the useful version quietly disappears. Each item on this list fails in a different way. Pay attention to which version goes first. Number 12. Finishing salt. Most households have one salt. Wealthy kitchens have two, one for cooking, one for finishing. The finishing salt is what makes stored food worth eating, and most people have never bought it because it looks like a gift item and costs twice the price of regular salt. That price gap is almost meaningless in practice. Fleur de sel, the French hand-harvested variety, can cost up to 20 times more than table salt. But you use 3 flakes of it. A single container lasts most households a year or more. The annual cost difference is a few dollars. What the difference actually does to the flavor of cooked food is not a few dollars. It is the difference between a plate that tastes intentional and one that tastes like whatever was in the pantry. Finishing salt provides texture and dissolution timing that table salt cannot replicate. You cannot substitute your way around it at the end of a dish. And it does not expire. Ever. You are not buying a perishable. You are buying permanent flavor insurance. The shelf signal is easy to read once you know it. The large resealable pouch disappears from specialty grocery shelves before the small decorative gift box. Buy the version that looks the least impressive. That one is the one worth having. Salt makes the food worth eating. But the next item is what makes the food worth cooking in the first place. Number 11. Shelf-stable cooking fat. Pantries fail at fat. A household can have 6 months of rice and beans and pasta and not a single gram of shelf-stable cooking fat. No oil, no butter in any storable form. And when the vegetable oil that has been sitting in the back of the cabinet for 2 years finally smells wrong, dinner stops being possible. Rancid oil does not just taste bad. It contaminates what you cook in it. The premium format, grass-fed ghee, quality duck fat, rendered lard in a sealed tin, is also, not coincidentally, the more reliable long-term format. Ghee is clarified butter with the water and milk solids removed. What remains stays shelf-stable for 12 months at room temperature and over 2 years refrigerated, without the casein or lactose that cause butter to degrade. Most people have never bought it because they associate it with specialty Indian cooking or health food stores, not with practical pantry strategy. The format that disappears first is the large jar of quality ghee from the warehouse store. What remains is the smaller, more expensive version and the mass-market vegetable shortening that has been on the shelf for 3 years without anyone touching it. 1 to 2 large jars, stored in a cool, dark place, rotated when used. That is the move. Fat handles the cooking, but there is one ingredient that determines whether the food anyone cooks from that pantry has any variety in it at all. Number 10. Whole spice reserves. Most spice racks are full of opened ground spices from 2 or 3 years ago. Most of those spices have lost 50 to 80% of their volatile aroma compounds. They are technically still spices. Functionally, they are just colored powder. The format wealthy home cooks keep is whole. Green cardamom pods, whole peppercorns, cinnamon sticks, and saffron threads. Whole spices stay potent for 2 to 4 years under the same conditions that reduce ground spices to almost nothing within 6 months. Saffron is the extreme example. Each Crocus sativus flower produces exactly 3 stigmas. Every thread in the jar was picked by hand. It takes thousands of flowers to produce a single ounce of saffron threads. Iran supplies roughly 90% of global production. A small container costs around $20 and flavors dozens of dishes over 4 years. Stored properly in an airtight container away from light, it will outlast almost everything else in the pantry. The consequence seen here is not dramatic. It is just month 2 of a difficult stretch. The pantry has protein and carbohydrates. Everything tastes the same. No one reaches for it anymore. Stored food fails not because it runs out, but because no one can bring themselves to eat it. Morale is a real preparedness variable. A pantry that supports real cooking is one that actually gets used. The tiny decorative spice jars stay on specialty shelves. The large format whole spice options disappear first. Number 9. Pure vanilla extract. Pick up a bottle of vanilla extract at a standard grocery store. Read the ingredient list. The word imitation, or the ingredient vanillin, tells you that what is in the bottle is a synthetic petrochemical compound, not vanilla. Most people cannot taste the difference because most people have never tasted the real thing in the same recipe. The bottles look identical. The prices differ by a few dollars, so most people buy the fake version without knowing. The supply chain for real vanilla runs almost entirely through Madagascar, which produces roughly 60% of the global harvest. A single cyclone can cut that harvest by 30 to 50%. That is not a hypothetical. Cyclone Gamane devastated key vanilla regions in 2024. Prices for real vanilla have peaked above $600 per kilogram during past shortages, more than 40 times the recovery prices available right now. This is the window. The market is currently in an oversupply phase. Prices are low. That low price is a function of one good weather cycle in one island nation. When the next weather event hits, and it will, the real version becomes 5 times more expensive almost immediately. The imitation version does not move. The imitation version never runs out because it is made in a factory. A large bottle of certified pure extract stores for 5 years or more, sealed in a cool, dark place. Whole vanilla beans store even longer. Buy the real version now. While it looks identical to the fake version in price, that window will not stay open. Number 8. High percentage dark chocolate. In 2024, the price of cocoa hit a 50-year high. Not a modest increase. Cocoa had traded between $1,000 and $3,000 per ton for most of modern history. In 2024, it reached $13,000. That is not a typo. That is roughly a 550% spike. What happened next is the part most shoppers missed. Major manufacturers did not absorb the cost and reduce margins. They reformulated. Hershey's raised prices. Nestlé's Toffee Crisp bar was quietly relabeled because it now contains more palm oil and shea oil than cocoa, which means, legally, it cannot be called chocolate anymore. Platis Club biscuits got the same treatment. The chocolate aisle still looks full. It is full, just not with chocolate. The product that wealthy buyers secured in quantity before peak prices was single-origin dark chocolate with 70% or higher cacao content. Those bars held. The craft makers that make them raised prices 10 to 20% because they could not reformulate without losing their entire customer base. J.P. Morgan Research now considers $6,000 per ton a structural price floor for cocoa, not a ceiling. The new normal is more expensive than the old peak. Dark chocolate stored in a cool, airtight, dark location holds quality for 1 to 2 years. A modest supply of quality bars is a hedge against the next West Africa harvest. And the next harvest is always uncertain. 3/4 of global cocoa comes from Ghana and Ivory Coast. One bad season in 2 countries is all it takes. The shelf looks full. The product on the shelf is not always what the label says it is. Number 7. Raw local honey. Between June 2024 and March 2025, U.S. commercial beekeepers lost an average of 62% of their colonies, not their worst season. The worst recorded loss rate since the original colony collapse crisis in 2008. 1.6 million colonies. Gone. The primary driver, confirmed by USDA Agricultural Research Service in June 2025, was viral infections spread by varroa mites that had developed resistance to the miticide treatments beekeepers rely on to control them. This is not a seasonal problem. Seasons recover. A biological arms race does not reset because spring came early. The mites evolved faster than the treatments. The treatments stopped working. There is no simple fix coming. The downstream effect is already visible in pricing. Domestic honey production fell 14% in 2025. Farm gate prices jumped 27% in the same year, from $2.41 per pound to $3.05. That is the beginning, not the end, of what retail prices will eventually show. The honey shelf at most grocery stores still looks full. It looks full because it is full of imported honey from Argentina and China, filling the gaps where domestic production used to sit. Domestic raw, unfiltered honey from a local or regional beekeeper is a different product. It contains different enzymes, different pollen signatures, different antimicrobial compounds. The bear-shaped container from an unspecified origin is not the same thing. Honey stored, sealed at stable temperature does not expire. Archaeologists have recovered edible honey from Egyptian tombs that are 3,000 years old. One large purchase of quality raw local honey right now is a hedge against a supply situation with no quick biological resolution. Watch the farmers market tables. Watch the small batch producer websites. When the limited stock notices start appearing, the window is already closing. Number 6. Aged premium vinegar. Traditional balsamic vinegar from Modena cannot be made faster. That is not a marketing line. It is the legal architecture of the product. A bottle carrying the DOP designation Denominazione di Origine Protetta must spend a minimum of 12 years aging in a sequential series of barrels. Mulberry first, then cherry, then ash, then chestnut, then oak. Each year in a progressively smaller barrel as the liquid concentrates. A 2-5-year designation requires exactly what it says and nothing less. Every bottle on the specialty shelf was started before some of the people watching this video were old enough to drive. The cheap bottle next to it was made in days. It is grape must thickened with caramel coloring. Both say balsamic on the label. They are not the same product. Wealthy buyers understand the difference and purchase accordingly. Most shoppers pick up the $4 bottle and believe they have the same thing. The supply constraint on the real product is not climate, not trade, not biology. It is time itself. Production cannot scale in response to demand. Every bottle that exists was started over a decade ago. The practical version of this for most households is simpler. Quality apple cider vinegar with active mother culture. Store brand versions of this go out of stock first when demand spikes. The version with the visible mother culture, the cloudiness in the jar, is a different functional product than filtered commercial ACV. It serves as a preservation acid, a fermentation starter, a flavor base, and a pantry staple that costs almost nothing and lasts indefinitely. A small bottle of genuine DOP balsamic for finishing, a large bottle of quality raw ACV with mother for everything else. Both last. Neither expires. Number 5. Wild-caught canned fish. Canned tuna will probably never run out. It is one of the most mass-produced food products on Earth. But that is not what wealthy buyers are stocking. They are buying wild Alaskan sockeye salmon, sustainable sardines from Portugal and Spain, wild-caught mackerel in olive oil in BPA-free cans with minimal additives and traceable origins. A 7-ounce can of wild sockeye salmon cost $4 to $6 5 years ago. The same can now cost $6 to $10 depending on the brand and retailer. That is a 50 to 100% increase. It did not make headlines. The can still shows up on the shelf, just at a number most people do not expect when they reach for it. Sardine production has faced ongoing challenges in key regions including Morocco. FAO data shows global tuna catches in the Western and Central Pacific under sustained pressure. The trade volume for premium tinned fish fell in early 2025. The category is not disappearing. The quality format is quietly tightening. The distinction matters for more than price. Wild-caught BPA-free canned fish carries omega-3 density that is nearly impossible to find in shelf-stable form elsewhere. Generic canned tuna in a standard can does not replicate that nutritional profile. When the conversation about mercury accumulation in large tuna species catches up to a household's awareness, the sardines and salmon they passed over at a still reasonable price may no longer be available at that price. A case each of quality wild-caught sardines and canned sockeye, rotated every 3 to 5 years, though the actual shelf life is often much longer. The case format is how the price becomes rational. The next level of protein strategy is where the real separation begins. Number 4. Premium freeze-dried protein. A 13-ounce pouch of freeze-dried grass-fed beef rehydrates to approximately 52 ounces. More than 3 pounds of cooked weight. The same protein bought fresh requires refrigeration, cooking, and consumption within days. The pouch in sealed storage will do exactly the same thing in 2035 if placed in a dark cabinet today. That is what wealthy preparedness buyers are paying for. Not the survival meal kit with the illustrated mountain on the packaging. Not the processed beef crumble with 12 ingredients including flavor enhancers and stabilizers. Single ingredient, grass-fed, antibiotic-free, freeze-dried, sealed. The emergency food market is growing fast, projected to expand by over $3 billion between 2024 and 2028. Most of that growth is in low-quality, heavily processed meal products. The clean, single-ingredient freeze-dried protein segment is a small niche within that expanding market. As demand for the category grows, the quality niche is the first to go on backorder. The budget meal kit stays in stock. The clean label beef goes out of allocation. 2 years of stored grains, oils, and canned goods is not a complete food system. Every night, when protein options are canned tuna or black beans, the household that has 1 case of quality freeze-dried beef is the household eating something that still resembles a real meal. This is not apocalypse buying. This is the same logic wealthy buyers apply to fine wine or aged spirits, a time-locked asset that cannot be reproduced on demand. The cabinet holds it for a decade. The decade passes. The asset is still there. Number 3. Quality whole bean coffee. Coffee prices hit a 47-year high in late 2024. Arabica peaked at $4.30 per pound in early 2025. Brazil experienced its worst drought in 70 years. Vietnam's harvest rotted on the branch. And the specialty, single-origin lots, the Ethiopian natural, the Guatemalan washed, the Colombian micro lot, were the first to disappear and the last to come back. The grocery store shelves held. The Folgers stayed. The Dunkin' cans stayed. The single-origin Ethiopian that a neighborhood cafe gets twice a year disappeared for months. Some specialty roasters are still waiting on their next allocation. This is not just a supply chain story. This is a ritual argument. Coffee is the item that most households consider non-negotiable and then budget least defensively. The container gets empty, and people assume the next version will be available because it always has been. The version they actually drink, from the specific roaster, with the specific origin. That version is a fraction of total global supply. Any reduction in overall production hits the specialty tier first and hardest. Whole beans in a sealed, oxygen-free container maintain quality for 1 to 2 years. Green, unroasted beans can hold for 2 to 5 years. Wealthy buyers who understand this are purchasing green bean allocations from importers and roasting at home. The entry version of this strategy is simpler. Buy 1 or 2 bags beyond current monthly consumption. Keep the supply from ever running completely out. Reorder before the bag is finished, not after. 3 weeks into any difficult stretch, the generic ground coffee in the pantry is not the same as the thing that made mornings function. That sounds small. It is not small when it is the 17th morning in a row. Number 2. Extra virgin olive oil. In January 2024, wholesale extra virgin olive oil in Spain reached nearly $11 per kilogram. Prices that had been stable for years doubled, then kept moving. Consumers noticed. They switched to other oils. They complained. Then the 2024 to 2025 harvest came in strong. Spain's production rebounded. Prices dropped. Most shoppers breathed a quiet sigh of relief and stopped thinking about it. In May 2026, Spain's olive oil industry group Olive issued a market warning. 70% of the entire 2025 to 2026 season's production had already been pre-sold in just 7 months. Preliminary field data is now showing a 37% decline in flowering fertility for the 2026 to 2027 harvest. The current calm is not a resolution, it is a buying window. Spain produces roughly 40% of global olive oil. Italy's extra virgin prices actually reached record highs in mid-2025, 40% above the 5-year average, because Italy's harvest did not recover the same way Spain's did. The Mediterranean basin is in a recurring cycle of climate-driven instability. One strong harvest does not reset the structural fragility. The people who supply grocery stores already know this. They pre-bought the next shortage while the shelves were still full. Extra virgin olive oil in dark glass, stored cool and away from light, holds quality for 18 to 24 months. 2 or 3 extra bottles bought during the current price recovery is not hoarding. It is the same rational behavior as buying ahead of any documented, recurring, supply-constrained commodity cycle. Look for bottles marked with the 2024 to 2025 harvest on the label. That is the recent good crop. That is the window. Number 1. Raw honey, the system anchor. Honey appeared earlier on this countdown as a supply crisis story. 62% colony losses. Varroa mites developing resistance. Farm gate prices jumping 27% in a single year. That is the reason to act now. But the reason it is number 1 is different. Raw honey is the only natural food that does not expire. Archaeologists have opened sealed vessels from Egyptian tombs and found honey that is 3,000 years old, still perfectly edible. No other food category can make that claim. Canned goods last 2 to 5 years. Freeze-dried protein lasts up to 25. Raw honey, sealed in a jar at stable temperature, lasts indefinitely. What that means for a pantry system is a different kind of logic entirely. Every other item on this countdown eventually runs out, degrades, or requires replacement. Honey does not. A purchase made today is not a 1-year or 2-year investment. It is a permanent addition to the household food supply. And it does more than one thing. It is a sweetener. It is an antimicrobial agent used historically on wounds before modern medicine because it genuinely works. It is a fermentation starter for mead, june, and other preserved beverages. It is a flavor base that replaces sugar in ways that change the complexity of the dish. It is a medicine cabinet supplement with documented efficacy for throat coating and cough suppression. And in a genuine resource-constrained environment, it is the single most universally understood trade item in the food category. Everyone knows what honey is. Everyone wants it. No one thinks it is a novelty. The supply crisis is the urgency. The intrinsic properties are why it belongs at the top. One large jar of domestic raw unfiltered honey from a local or regional beekeeper. Sealed, stored at room temperature, away from heat and light. It requires nothing else. It will still be there when everything with a printed expiration date has long since been rotated out. The farmer's market honey vendors sold out before summer. The grocery store is full of imported product in familiar packaging. That is not the same thing. The window for domestic quality sourcing is still open, but the colony numbers confirm it will not stay that way indefinitely. A pantry can have months of calories and still fail. No fat to cook with means dinner is dry and difficult. No flavor means dinner is technically possible and practically miserable. No protein beyond beans means the second month starts to feel like the 50th. No ritual, no coffee, no chocolate, no small thing that makes a long stretch feel livable, and the whole system becomes something people avoid instead of rely on. The items that go first are not the obvious ones. They are the format you stopped checking, the bulk pack that was not there when you needed it, the quality version that crept up in price while you were looking at something else, the domestic source that dried up while the shelf stayed full of something that looked identical. On your next 3 shopping trips, add one item from this list that you would not normally buy in the format or quantity that actually matters. Not the small version, not the decorative version, the one that will still be useful 2 years from now. Which one of these has already gotten harder to find in the version you actually want, not just the product, but the specific quality or format that made it worth buying? Tell me in the comments what you've noticed on your own shelves. The shelf does not have to be empty for the problem to have started. It just has to stop carrying the version that matters. The people buying ahead right now are doing it quietly, without announcing it, while everything still looks normal.